The interstellar academy of consciousness hummed with the steady rhythm of technology and thought. Its towers, sharp and translucent, rose like crystalline needles above the orange plains of the planet Araxis 9. Within those towers lived students of every imaginable origin, beings with shimmering exoskeletons, others with translucent minds housed in hovering orbs, some constructed entirely of living plasma. They had gathered here from across the Orion expanse, united by one goal: to learn how to harmonize existence between species, cultures, and realities. In this grand melting pot of brilliance and peculiarity, one student seemed almost absurdly ordinary. His name was Eli Heron, a human exchange candidate from Earth. He was of average height, with an unimpressive build, dark hair that always seemed to need a comb, and a habit of yawning at the most inappropriate moments. While other students meditated by folding quantum membranes of reality into elaborate knots or practiced mind-linking across 6 dimensions, Eli often napped with his head resting on his arm. It puzzled the faculty greatly that Earth, a planet considered technologically immature by galactic standards, had insisted on sending this single human to represent them. And yet, Eli was tolerated, partly because the academy prided itself on inclusivity, and partly because the instructors were curious about the species that dared to send such an unremarkable individual. On the morning the story truly began, the academy halls buzzed with anticipation. Notices were posted in glowing glyphs across every corridor. Mandatory emergency drill, planetary seismic simulation, 0900 Academy Standard Time. This was no ordinary safety exercise. The drill was designed to simulate catastrophic tremors equivalent to the fracturing of a planetary crust, a controlled disaster intended to train the minds of students in crisis management. Most looked forward to it with eagerness, treating it as both a test and a spectacle. All except Eli. At 8:59, as the resonant bell chimed across the crystal towers, Eli was already in the dormitory common room, stretched out on a couch with a blanket, one shoe still dangling off his foot. He closed his eyes, sighing, as though the universe owed him a nap. And then the academy shook. Middle. The first tremor came like a low growl beneath the floor, followed by a thunderous quake that rattled the walls. The great translucent beams of the academy swayed, pulsing with stabilizer fields. The floor split and reformed under pressure plates designed to mimic tectonic upheavals. Screams and shouts of alarm filled the halls as hundreds of students reacted. A crystal-skinned Aurelian immediately anchored themselves by extending shards of their own body into the floor, glowing furiously. Beside them, a gaseous phoros clouded the air, breaking into dozens of vaporous fragments to reduce vulnerability. A Ketheri, all 12 arms flailing, activated emergency psionic fields, covering their peers from falling shards of holographic debris. The chaos was magnificent and precisely what the academy had engineered. Every student tested their training, instincts, and cultural problem-solving strategies under simulated disaster. Every student except one. Eli snored softly on the couch. The tremors increased, rattling cups off tables, sending digital screens flickering, and even knocking several students to the ground. An insectoid Zarga skittered toward him, antennae twitching in panic. "Human!" the Zarga shouted in a trill of vibrating mandibles. "The ground rends beneath us. You must brace, activate your shields, or fold your spine into stability posture." Eli mumbled something incoherent, rolled over, and pulled the blanket tighter around his shoulders. The Zuerke froze, perplexed. Around them chaos surged. The second wave of tremors struck, more violent than the first. Furniture levitated and crashed under manipulated gravity fields. Sirens blared instructions in a dozen languages. Yet Eli lay unmoved. his chest rising and falling with tranquil rhythm. Word spread quickly, for in moments of panic, unusual behavior draws every eye. "Why is the human not screaming?" hissed an Aurelian. "Why does he not dissolve into protective liquid form?" another asked. "He appears asleep," said the Ketheri incredulously. Soon, despite the raging quake simulation, clusters of students gathered around the couch to stare at the anomaly. Some attempted to shake him awake. The Phoros condensed its misty body and whispered directly into his auditory canal, while the Zoe jabbed his arm with a careful claw. Eli only snorted and turned his head the other way. "This is illogical," muttered Professor Korn, a massive creature resembling a floating brain with tendrils of light. "Species under stress exhibit reaction. Fear at the very least. This specimen is non-reactive. Why?" Speculation rippled through the panicked assembly. Perhaps humans lack survival instinct. Or perhaps their nervous system is too primitive to register danger. Could it be deliberate meditation? Some advanced stoicism? All the while, the simulated tectonic nightmare unfolded. Crystal beams cracked, emergency shields struggled to stabilize the structure, and students tested strategies that reflected their species' core philosophies. But not a single being could ignore the bizarre serenity of Eli Heron. The drill finally subsided. Stabilizers engaged fully, returning the academy to its gleaming, tranquil state. Sirens ceased. Floors reformed seamlessly. The great crystalline spires straightened as though nothing had happened. Students collapsed, panting, their bodies flickering, glowing, or oozing depending on their physiology. And then, at precisely 9:32, Eli yawned and sat up. "Morning," he muttered groggily, rubbing his eyes. "Did I miss something?" The room fell into stunned silence. Then an uproar. "You slept!" shouted the Aurelian, shards bristling. "Through seismic rupture protocols," buzzed the Zoe. "We nearly collapsed 3 collective consciousnesses trying to stabilize the structure. And you napped?" Professor Korn thundered. Eli blinked, confused by the anger. "Yeah, back home drills like that happen all the time. Earth's full of earthquakes, tornado sirens, fire alarms. And honestly, they usually turn out fine. After a while, you just sleep through them. Builds character." The assembly stared at him as if he had declared himself immune to death. Rising consequences. The story of the sleeping human spread like wildfire through the academy. Students whispered about it in corridors. Teachers debated its implications in staff meetings. And soon even the head chancellor summoned Eli for questioning. The chancellor, a being composed entirely of shifting prismatic fractals, regarded him with intense curiosity. Do humans truly slumber through existential threats? Eli shrugged. Not all humans. Some panic. Some get ready. Me. I just figure if I can't control it, why worry? Better to rest. This baffled the chancellor. Across known species, reaction to danger was universal, either fight, flight, or freeze. Yet here was a human demonstrating something else entirely: indifference through sleep. Researchers seized upon the incident. They monitored Eli's brainwaves during simulated disasters. They discovered that his neural rhythms adapted instantly, dropping into deeper stages of sleep even when alarms blared at peak intensity. Stress that sent other species into chaos seemed to lull him further into rest. Papers were written. Debates raged. Was this resilience? Negligence? A unique neurological defense mechanism? Eli himself remained largely unconcerned. He attended classes, doodled in his notes, and continued his habit of finding the softest spot in any room to nap. Students began to sit nearby, not out of camaraderie at first, but to marvel at his serenity. Somehow, his presence made even the most anxious beings calmer. Climax weeks later, the Academy faced something far worse than a drill. Without warning, a genuine seismic upheaval gripped Araxis 9. The stabilizers flickered. This was no simulation. Tectonic plates beneath the planet had shifted violently, threatening the Academy's very foundation. Panic was immediate. Students who had trained under artificial conditions now faced true disaster. Alarms blared, walls cracked, and the crystal towers groaned under the strain. In the chaos, beings screamed for guidance. Which protocol is this? Are the shelters stable? What if the stabilizers collapse entirely? And then, through the panic, someone shouted, "Where is the human?" They found Eli in the central hall, slouched against a column, fast asleep. Once again, panic slowed. Dozens of species watched his chest rise and fall, and an unexpected calm rippled outward. If the human, fragile, soft-bodied, unequipped with natural armor, could remain unafraid, then perhaps the crisis was survivable. Students began to steady themselves. Protocols were remembered. Collaborations formed. The Aurelian anchored structural beams, the Phoros stabilized fractured atmosphere, and the Ketheri organized evacuation routes. Inspired not by orders but by the absurd tranquility of Eli Heron, they acted with new cohesion. Hours later, when the quake subsided and the Academy stood battered but intact, the faculty admitted a startling truth. Panic had nearly destroyed them, but the sleeping human had unified them. Eli awoke to find a crowd gathered around him, staring in awe. He rubbed his eyes and muttered, "Did I oversleep again?" Ending in the weeks that followed, Eli Heron became a legend within the Academy. Professors coined a new term: passive resilience. They argued that humanity's peculiar ability to normalize constant stress, by ignoring it, even sleeping through it, was not weakness, but a strength unlike any other. For in a galaxy of beings finely tuned to danger, perhaps too finely tuned, humanity's gift was a strange kind of balance. The ability to carry on as though disaster were only background noise. Courses were designed around the human method, encouraging students to cultivate calm not by mastery of advanced techniques, but by accepting powerlessness and refusing fear. As for Eli, he graduated the Academy with middling grades but unparalleled fame. He never sought recognition. He only wanted comfortable couches and uninterrupted naps. Yet wherever he went, whispers followed. There goes the one who slept through earthquakes. The human who calmed 1,000 species. The dreamer who turned fear into peace. And so it was that in the great annals of the Interstellar Academy, etched beside the grand achievements of the galaxy's finest minds, one peculiar entry remained.